What is up, everybody? It's already had the mic muted. Interesting game. We're going to be talking about all of it. Alabama victory over South Carolina, 29-22 final score. A lot to talk about in this one. I mean, and granted, we're going to celebrate an Alabama win because they figured out a way to get it done. At various points, and you guys agree with me if you want to. You can choose to disagree, but I got to be honest. There were moments in that football game where I wouldn't say all hope was lost, but it just felt like it was one of those games where Alabama was trending in the wrong direction. They've struggled in these types of games in the past, and it just felt like another repeat performance. Offense came out flat. Defense held on for as long as it possibly could, it seemed like. And it just seemed like right there at the end of the game, the wheels were going to start rolling off. Instead, they figured out a way to not only get the stops they needed down the stretch, but also figured out a way on offense to finally be able to move the football down the field, get a big touchdown. And so I think that is absolutely huge. Hang on, let me check Mike.
All right, guys, how we doing? Is that good? Sorry, screw that up right out the gate. Let me know if it's better. Sorry. We're in a new place. Had to travel. But man, got to be honest, guys, this game was incredibly frustrating. Just like a lot of the other games have been frustrating. It just seems like that Alabama was trying to figure out ways to lose. And yet, at the same time, when plays had to be made, when they had to bow up and get a stop, whether it be on offense or defense, they figured out a way to get it done. We are going to be talking about, I think this is important. The offense looked off. Completely agree with you. But I also think that I'm going to struggle with this one because last week I pretty much did the same thing. I knew what was coming up as far as, South Carolina being a football team that's good enough to beat you. If you don't take them seriously enough, they have good quarterback play. They have a good pass rush. It's the hostile environment. I mean, so anybody who was trying to act like that this wasn't a possibility because of South Carolina's record, which, by the way, it was against 4 pretty good opponents. So it wasn't like they were losing to teams they weren't supposed to. They just have had a gauntlet of a schedule like a lot of the SEC teams, and they haven't figured out a way to get a win in any of those. But what I'm struggling with right now is trying to, there were some concerning things as far as Ty Simpson's performance on the road. There was some concerns as far as drop footballs, whether that be on offense, whether that be on defense. But, and give them some credit for winning. You were never satisfied. I just said that they won. They figured out a way, despite the fact that this was right down the lane that a lot of these other games had looked like, as far as, you're going against a sub 500 football team. It's a hostile environment. All those factors, they figured out a way to lose these football games in the past. They figured out a way to win. I've already said that twice. So I understand that we want to hop on here and everything wants to be happy-go-lucky. And there's going to be a lot that we talk about that is positive, because I will say right here out the gate, this team's ability to respond to adversity and figure out a way to get the job done. This team last year is laying down. The way the things were starting to get away from them, whether it be offensively, defensive, the defensive side of the football, they're trying to hang on, trying to figure out a way to win. And, but at the same time, the offense was giving them little to no help. And so last year's team would have laid down. This year's team did not. They figured out a way to get it done. And that is championship caliber football. Having that ability when you are not playing a great game and everything seems to be going against you, when that muffed punt, or, you wouldn't call it a muffed punt, when the punt ended up hitting Jalen Mbakwe and South Carolina was able to jump on the football, at that point, it just felt like this is going to be one of those games. I mean, just as much as they have done that was self-inflicted, that's one of those fluky things that I guess you can get upset at Jalen Mbakwe, because I do feel like he was getting too close to the returner, but at the same time, it was kind of a fluky situation where it's just like, man, I mean, just nothing can go Alabama's way. And yet somehow they figured out a way to get a win in a very tough environment. That place was rocking. Anybody who was there, I was actually texting somebody who was there. They said this place is absolutely rocking like they had never heard before. So give the South Carolina fan base a lot of credit. Give South Carolina a lot of credit. But Alabama figuring out a way to get an ugly win is something that they didn't do last year. So Bama will, I hope that suffices as far as giving them praise, because there's a lot to praise. At the end of the day, no matter what I say, they figured out a way to get the job done. That's what it is all about. It doesn't matter how it always looks, but we are going to talk about some of the things they did struggle with. And the reason we're going to discuss that is because these situations might creep back up in the future. And so, as far as the offensive line getting absolutely whipped, granted, in the second half, I thought they started to do a little bit better, but in the first half, it was really ugly off the edges. But we're going to be talking about all of that. I don't want to get too carried away as far as the praise, and I don't want to get too carried away as far as the negative. Assward Spiral, great name, by the way. Appreciate the $5 super chat. At this moment, I don't care how bad we played. I'm proud of the fight in this team. Last year's team would have 100% lost. I mean, I couldn't have said any better. I mean, you're 100% correct that this team, the way that it was able to respond late in this football game when everything was going against them, you have to give them a lot of credit. And it's like the offense figure out a way to get it done on multiple occasions. As far as going down there and scoring the touchdown to tie the football game up, it was the 2-point conversion attempt, which was a great play design by Ryan Grubb, or it was the defense getting the stop, stripping Lenore Sellers, getting the football back, and then figuring out a way to score another touchdown where, it's a hostile environment, a lot of pressure on Connor Talty. At some point, there might be a trust there enough, and I'm sure the staff would have given him the opportunity, but it's like, from a fan's perspective, watching the way things were unfolding, it's like, man, don't settle for a field goal here. Just don't put it on that kid's shoulders right now. Figure out a way to score a touchdown, figure out a way to make it, or at bare minimum, the easiest chip shot on the planet. And they were absolutely able to do that. Not only do that, but they were able to score a touchdown to not even have to worry about putting Connor Talty out there. So, I mean, just give this team a lot of credit. Let's see. Jeremy, much needed rest for the guys too. I don't know. I'll get to that in a second. Kane Womack is not it, even if we win the Natty. Next, why do we run inside? Run the F outside, and that 4th and 1 run, Jeremy, sweep. I mean, the run game was pretty much non-existent. It does seem like, I mean, at this point, let's look at the stats and just kind of see. Jam Miller, I thought he actually ended up having some pretty good moments down the stretch as far as when Alabama really needed him to. That was good to see in those must-have moments. You talk about individual guys, whether you talk about collective units, being able to run the football, the offensive line, the entire thing. I do feel like that Jam had some good moments. I thought Daniel Hill, 3 carries for 10 yards, 3.3 yards per carry, and yet he had a long of 11 yards, if that tells you anything. So he had 10 total yards rushing, and his long was for 11. So granted, it happened at a big moment. And in the first half, 4 catches, 76 yards. He was massive as far as catching the football, being a reliable check down option who can make plays after the catch to make that a respectable game for the offense. So you like to see that. But let's see, we got a couple of more super chats. Peyton Ray, appreciate the $4.99 super chat. Offensive line size finally got exposed by speed. These are things that we had talked about as far as what South Carolina does. Dylan Stewart's still Dylan Stewart. He has not put up the type of gear that a lot of people were expecting, but he has been a very productive pass rusher from a disruption standpoint. And he was coming into this game with, maybe some lingering hip issues from that hip injury, but at the same time, still very twitchy, still very explosive. He's that rare style of pass rusher. And then Brian Thomas on the other end, who caused Caden Proctor massive issues in the first half. That's one of those situations where, I did feel like it was Caden Proctor's best performance, but with this offense in general, they figured out a way in the second half where things got better. I have to go back and watch the film to try to actually figure out what, there were some times where it was just flat out getting beat. Couldn't handle the edge speed. There was, one time where I think he was content trying to run Brian Thomas past Ty Simpson. Ty tries to step up, and because Caden Proctor wasn't engaged with Thomas, Thomas was able to counter back inside, and then still make the play. And that's the kind of stuff. It's like, man, just if you're going to commit to something like running him by Ta, make sure you got hands on him and you're running him completely by him. It's things like that are kind of frustrating. But at the same time, they figured out a way. I mean, give them credit. Perry, appreciate the $2 super chat. The play calling was odd, no spread out quick game. It was very odd. I mean, I think that the commitment to try to throw the football vertically, maybe it was some things they saw on tape. I understand the South Carolina defense hadn't been great, but when you consider how much the offense had struggled as far as the longer developing stuff downfield. Now, granted, there's certain plays where you're going off a play action, you plan to go vertical, and the football gets out of Ty Simpson's hands fairly quickly. So you can go just because you got guys going vertical doesn't automatically mean it's a long developing play. But it just felt like that it was not there. They were trying to force it. It has been a problem for Alabama's offense all year, and for whatever reason, they were really committed to trying to make this the breakout performance for Alabama's vertical game. And I didn't like the game plan. I felt like they were overly committed to it. The run game was non-existent. The vertical passing game was non-existent. And, I mean, they figured out a way to get the job done as far as when plays needed to be made, which is something I'll give the guys credit for, because throughout a majority of that game, all we were saying is that it was another opportunity for an Alabama player to make a play, and he didn't make it. Even going all the way to the Xavier Brown, could have had an interception, ends up, going through his hands, couldn't bring it in. And then they kick a field goal to take a lead. Like, those are the type of situations that you never want to see. But they figured out a way to get it done. We are, I think, let me check and see. I'm going to invite, we'll get EG on here too. And she will, I guarantee you, she will probably be a lot more, for the people that are upset at me for not being positive enough. I'm sure she'll be very positive. But I mean, it's like that. I don't know, the whole thing. Hang on, let me just go ahead and send this so I'm not distracted and halfway talking. Appreciate the patience. It's just me again until we can get EG on. Appreciate y'all being here though, and I mean, roll tide to everybody. I mean, these are the kind of games that you never want to see. You'd love Alabama to be able to just go out there. They're 12.5 point. I don't know what it finished at, but figure out a way to just get the win. You would love to see that, but at the same time, sometimes you struggle, and Alabama certainly struggled, but they figured out a way to get the win. All right, let's get back at it. Appreciate you for being here, James. Jeremy, let's not forget the defense scored a touchdown. That's a great point. Second week in a row where they got a pick six, a non-offensive touchdown, and just considering how much the offense was struggling with the 3 and outs all throughout the game, couldn't run the football. We're trying to make the vertical passing game work. Couldn't do it. The defense stepped up and said, hey, let us try to take some pressure off of you. Let's go out there and score a touchdown. They made a big play. I felt like that could have been a better turning point. But at the same time, the fact that they were able to make that play, because the offense, I guess, final score 29. So the offense scored 22 points. Once again, wasn't a great offensive performance from a scoring standpoint, from a yardage standpoint, did not control tempo like they had done in the past, did not control, flow of the game and all of that, but they figured out a way to get it done. All right, we're going to be bringing EG.
Hello, everyone.
How are you doing?
I am still very stressed out. As you guys can see, my face is still red. I am aged a little bit in the last couple of hours.
Yeah. How are you feeling throughout the game? Like, did it feel like one of those performances where it's like, okay, this is par for the course, but they'll figure out a way to get it done. It's just a matter of who ends up stepping up and making the play. Like, was that the approach, or was it the entire time were you pretty, I don't want to say doom and gloom. I think we're all going to hindsight this and act like we were a little bit more positive. But during this game, was it like, they're with the way they're playing, unless things change quickly, they're probably going to end up losing.
Clint, it was funny. I sent a text actually, and it was right at the 2-minute timeout, right? And I said, I have a good feeling about this, and I'm not sure if that's a good thing. But I did feel like if the offense had a chance to get themselves under themselves, basically, if they had a chance to gather themselves, go out there and execute, I felt like there was going to be a shot for something. And so, it was one of those things where I felt like as the game was progressing, the defense was so impressive because it really came down to, can the defense get one more stop? And they did. But we saw in the final few minutes the offense really starting to execute.
Yeah, it definitely felt like that the offense, it was weird because it felt like at times when they really had a sense of urgency, they were able to move the football. Like the last couple of drives before halftime, they had quite a bit of success moving the football, and they scored a touchdown. They kind of, put themselves in a situation from a time, remaining standpoint, weren't able to do, get 2 touchdowns on the board or score twice in general. But then towards the end of this game, started moving the football. It's just, for whatever reason, this was that type of performance, and give South Carolina a lot of credit. I thought they were much better on the interior of their defensive line than I probably gave them credit for going into this game. I said they were a good interior defensive front. Did not think they were going to be able to control the line of scrimmage, between the tackles quite like they were able to. So that was somewhat concerning, but you also got to give them credit for that. But, God, it just feels like that for a majority of the games, or for a majority of the game, not enough guys were stepping up and making plays when they needed to. That included the offensive line. It included Ryan Williams with another drop, and included Ty Simpson missing throws. Offensively, it certainly felt like that. Yeah. Rico Scott, had a drop, couldn't get anything going as far as, running backs would take a handoff and would immediately get tackled in the backfield. Like, there was just a lot of frustration on that side of the football. But when you typically have those types of performances where guys, for whatever reason, just doesn't seem like, it just doesn't seem like things are clicking, to see them turn it around and really turn it on when it mattered, when you had to have it. Like, at this point forward, you've got to start making some plays. They seem to flip a switch. To me, that's championship caliber stuff. And that's something that I've already told people, and I'm sure you probably would agree. The team last year is not doing that. I'll go ahead and tell you that right now.
Yeah, and I think that shows in Coach DeBoer. We can go over what was said in post game here in a second. I was able to watch it on that and take some notes, but that is something to consider, that last season we did not see this response. And like I said, it really came down to the defense getting on their stop, doing their job, but also the offense really finding that sense of urgency late in the game, which is so hard to do, especially in that environment. I mean, you have all of the students getting closer and closer to the field. The environment itself, you could hear it on the broadcast. It was so loud, and the ability for the offense to click into rhythm. And Jerry Bernard, I don't think we can say enough good things about him, right? And the trust that this coaching staff has in him. Coach DeBoer was asked about it in postgame, and he said that, when it comes down to it, it's all about the guys that you can trust. And when, you look at these trick plays that they're running, he said, a lot of times they're running these trick plays in practice and they don't see them. But he loves the reps that they're banking, because when the opportunity presents itself, they can do what we saw here tonight. And so, it was not a pretty game by any means. And he did say that there's a lot that you can learn from these games. Obviously not in the moment. It's not something that you want to see happen, but the ability for this team, the resiliency that they have to learn from past experiences and still be able to come out with a win in a hostile environment, and a South Carolina team that arguably played their best football all season long against them.
Yeah. Obviously, and I think this is a good point. We'll go ahead and talk about this. Jason Dill, appreciate the super chat. We missed Brooks in the slot with Rico Scott's drops and crucial times. I mean, it was pretty evident they missed last year. I'm not going to say it would have been a complete game changer for the offense in the sense of the way that they were playing. I mean, it definitely affected things. And I was curious, and I'll be curious to go back and actually watch the tape and figure out exactly what it is that they did to kind of make up for the fact that Latsier had been playing quite a few snaps. I think about 28 per game, and over 88% of those snaps have been coming in the slot. So that is a big chunk of a guy who had been manning that slot position. And then you would move other guys in and out. He obviously wasn't playing every snap. So, Ron would play in the slot some. Jeremy would play in there. You'd see Rico every once in a while. Isaiah Horton, about 10% of his snaps, so not a whole lot. But, when you lose that type of player, a slot-only option would have been Cole Adams. But with the way that where he's at in the pecking order, seemingly in the pecking order, it was like, I don't know how much we see of him, despite the fact that from a guy who's going to spend all of his time inside, or pretty much all of it, Cole Adams would have made sense. But at the same time, it did feel like that Latsier's absence, to an extent, I think he's a reliable playmaker. I think he's a guy that you can trust in some of those critical moments. We've seen it from Ty Simpson. And Isaiah Horton also, he got banged up throughout the game, and I'll be curious to see if we get any updates on that. But this wide receiver room, it's taken a beating from an injury standpoint.
No, it has, and I think that the bye week is coming at a great time, and I will definitely be, I'm excited for post-game, or excuse me, media. Actually, I'm not sure if we'll even have media on Monday, so it's gonna be a second before we get to chat with the coaching staff, but that's something that I'm keeping my eye on is, the health of Isaiah Horton and the health overall of the wide receiver room. But I think that this bye week is coming at such a great time, and for you guys in the chat, we appreciate you being here. If you want to get a question in, you guys are doing a great job rolling them in, send a super chat in and we'll make sure that we do get to it. So Clint, you want to go to that one from Ralph Bryant right there?
From Ralph. Yeah, we'll start with we'll get them in order. Brandon was up next.
Okay, perfect.
And Brandon just does a phenomenal job. Brandon from DC, our O-line needs to soul search during the bye week. Ty started seeing ghosts because of their poor play. Good win though. Brandon, completely agree. It feels like that the offensive line, and I was, Wilkin Formby got the start at right tackle, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Michael Carroll did play some in the first half, but I didn't notice him a whole lot. I did notice him in the second half. Obviously, he had that hands to the face that really stood.
Mm-hmm.
If you weren't paying attention to the offensive line lineup, you certainly would have seen him out there when he got called for that. But it's interesting because a week after getting his first career start, seemingly, I wouldn't say he got benched quickly, but it just seems like he ended up back, in a secondary role to Wilkin, and you weren't seeing a lot of, as many reps as you would expect. Then all of a sudden this week, it's like it's mainly Wilkin for me. Now, Wilkin played really well last week. I'm sure that had a role in it, but it's curious. Mm-hmm. But then Jaden Roberts ends up getting a start at right guard. You saw some Will Sanders. You saw Cam Dewberry get the start at left guard. Don't think he played great, to be honest with you. I mean, typically, you're always going to see Parker Brailsford and Caden Proctor, but just the offensive line, I wouldn't say that it was surprising that they struggled so much with the edge speed. It's actually kind of par for the course, but it is extremely frustrating because he's 100% correct that Ty started seeing ghosts. Mm-hmm. The trust really wasn't there. He was rushing. You could tell as far as the processing, you wasn't seeing it. Some of that's the crowd hostility and a combination of those factors. Mm-hmm. When you're having to worry about navigating, communicating, and getting guys lined up correctly, getting the right thing, relayed to your guys, and you're having to worry about, okay, when I snap this football, I'm going to be under duress and probably be under duress pretty quickly. That's just that much more that you got to think about. So that is certainly going to add to it, to Ty's performance. Mm-hmm. I don't know what this staff's going to do is trying to fix that or remedy that moving forward, because kind of what they have is what they have at this point.
Yeah, and I think too, when you look at what Ty has been, able to do, I think that we saw him have a little bit of a letdown this week. And when you're playing such, high caliber competition, you sort of expect it a little bit. But I'm curious, to get their thoughts on this. I will have a sit down with Coach Grubb later this week, so I'm excited about that, to kind of get his thoughts on just a few things. And when it comes to the offensive line, Clint, they're still rotating guys, and they're still trying to figure out what is going to work. Did you expect them to be a little more solidified in that area?
In what area now? You cut
just
out for a second.
In the rotation of the offensive line.
This has been a huge question for a lot of people this week, mm-hmm. and really the last several weeks, but it was something on the mailbag. And I said that I liked the rotation. I understand that a lot of people typically like to settle in on 5. I've always been one of those people myself, by the way. This has been kind of trying to understand where they're at. I mean, if there's a player that steps up and they say, you know what, I'm the starting left guard, or I'm the mm-hmm. starting right guard, or I'm the starting right tackle, and they don't just say it, but they do enough to earn it, this coaching staff will commit to them fully, but they haven't done it. Now, here's the thing. You got to ask yourself, is it that no one has stepped up and done that because they don't have the available options? Or is it that this coaching staff is like, okay, unless you're a Parker Brailsford, Caden Proctor caliber of player, we want to have that rotation because we want to be protected from injury. And you also got to talk about or think about, as far as this long, tough, grueling season mm-hmm. that a lot of these teams are dealing with now. There's a lot more college football being played. So it's trying to build that depth. I couldn't tell you if that was intentional or if it's that but at the same time though, watching some of these performances, it's like, maybe it's maybe this group just right now, they don't have it figured out enough. Mm-hmm. But what I will say is that, with the way that the tackles are built for Alabama, this was not a good matchup for them. And I do think that we at least need to acknowledge that. Peyton Ray, appreciate the 199 super chat. Best win for Bama in 2 years, given the circumstances.
Interesting.
I can't dispute that because it just felt like, and if you say 2 years, if you mean 2024 and 2025, I would say in a lot of ways, I agree. This staff, this team, whether it be last year or this year, when they're playing in those really big games, they don't seem to have much of a problem. They figure things out. Now, granted, there's been some close games, some battles. I think there's a lot of factors going into that, from a clock rule standpoint. And, there is more parity in college football, a lot of factors playing in. But it's just for whatever reason, these types of games, things get ugly and they get ugly early. And you very quickly can identify it's going to be one of those days. Now, what the reason that Peyton is probably saying this, and the reason that I definitely agree with him, is that despite that, you figured out a way to get the win. Not last year's team's not doing that. I'm telling you, there is never a moment where things are going wrong, and especially for a majority of the game, it's not like, oh, we started off rocky. They started off rocky against Vanderbilt, and then they responded, and they figured out a way to get a turnover down in their own, when Vanderbilt was about to score to go up multiple scores, and then they were off to the races. It's this long sustaining, nothing's going right. And I will say one thing that you could always count on from this Alabama team was that in these moments, you can lean on the offense, not lean on the run game, but you could lean on them to control the football, to keep the defense off the field. If the defense is struggling for whatever reason, maybe they're getting a little gassed or a little winded, maybe they're trying to, they need some help as far as the schematics and how they're going to adjust to things. The offense would go out there and say, okay, we'll give you 6, 7, 8, 9 minutes to get things figured out. And in this game, they didn't do that. It was 3 and out, defense is back out there, 3 and out, defense is back out there. And that was, for the identity of what this team has become, that was so off that typically when something like that is off to that extent, you lose football games. And yet Alabama figured out a way to win this football game. So while there is frustration, and all this week we're going to be talking about some of those issues, how does Alabama try to fix it during the bye week? We also need to acknowledge that they won a style of football game that they were really not accustomed to winning. And they really, not saying they weren't built for it, but they had to earn every bit of this. And so I agree with Peyton on that. Let's see. We got Ralph as well with a super chat. Appreciate you, Ralph Bryant, $4.99. Can you agree now that the run game needs to improve? Because complimentary run game made us one-sided. Play calling was stubborn. Roll Tide. Ralph, there's no doubt. They didn't. I expected Alabama to have more success running the football today than they did. And the fact that they struggle with it to the extent that they did, that is concerning. I'm not going to argue that whatsoever because, like I said, Jam Miller had a couple of good moments. I thought Daniel Hill, catching the football out of the backfield, he had the one solid run, in a moment where Alabama really needed it. So give him credit for that. But this is an each and every week thing, and it's not improving. And from my perspective, it's like when you start saying, well, you're seeing flashes, these things need to come together. These conversations are happening in weeks 4 and 5 and 6. And it's like, okay, you're reaching that midway point of the season, but there's still plenty of time to figure it out. We've seen teams not completely change, but they start figuring things out to an extent where they start adding wrinkles or elements to their team identity and can lean on them more. And so it's like, nobody panic, everything's fine. But as we continue on this path and you're not really seeing progression in some ways, and in some areas you're seeing regression, that's where you have to start questioning it and saying, why can't they get this figured out? If they don't get it figured out, then it can become a massive problem down the road, just like it was at times a problem today.
Yeah. I think what's, interesting about the run game is, and I go back to when I sat down, with Coach Cap and I talked to him about this, because I think some of this offensive makeup, it isn't, I don't want to say conducive, but it's not heavily reliant on the run game. But I feel like you have to be somewhat just cohesive with it, somewhat consistent with it. And I think that's what a lot of people are wanting to see from the run game. As Coach Cap said, they'd love to, run the ball 80 times in a game, but that's not really realistic with how the makeup of this offense under Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb operates.
Yeah, that's and Daniel Hill can be a potential solution. Jam Miller, he's a potential solution. but there were times like, was it a third and short? Was it a fourth? I guess it was a third and short, and they didn't convert, trying to hand the football. Yeah. And they were trying to hand the football to Daniel Hill, and he's got a defender wrapping around his legs by the time he's getting the handoff. What do you want him to do? That is 100%. Granted, some of that is just, what South Carolina is calling. They're being aggressive. They're anticipating the right things, but some of it is just not getting guys blocked. On the interior, both guard spots, I haven't seen enough as far as working alongside Parker Brailsford cohesiveness. And I guess, as you start to analyze that, and once again, all these things that I say on a post-game show, I take what I've actually studied on film, and then I also react to what I saw watching a game live. So I might go back and come away with different conclusions. So just understand that we're working somewhat with, limited information right now, but it's like, that is the position that they're rotating by far the most. Right tackle as well, but those two guard spots, you've seen a lot of different players. You've seen Wilkin, Gino, Jaden, Will Sanders, Cam Dewberry. You've seen a bunch of dudes get snaps at guard, and yet to me, the guard has been the biggest problem. Now, this is a chicken or the egg. Is it that they're rotating and that's causing a lot of these issues because there's no continuity, no chance to gel, or are they having to rotate because that is by far the two weakest spots on the offensive line? That I can't tell you, but it is at least something that we need to be continuing to try to monitor, because that can be something that can get you beat later.
Yep.
Mattress Matt, appreciate the $2 super chat. Let's see if I can get it pulled up. No more taking these teams for granted. Stop it. It's so funny that you say that, Mattress Matt, because last week on the postgame show, Alabama just got a 17-point win over Tennessee. And yes, there were things to celebrate on that front, but one of the things that I immediately started to address was saying South Carolina is the type of team that has caused them trouble. So while this is great, 4 top 20 teams in a row, how many teams in the country, A, could do that, or B, have done that? None. None have gone on 4 straight and won all 4. So you give them credit for that. But it's like, okay, now this is a great box to check. And I had concern about it. A lot of people decided this is a different football team. You need to stop holding this team to the, responsible for the failures of last year. You had the FSU, but at the same time, it's season opener. You don't know what FSU is. That's a little bit more understandable. But then as you're watching this game, you're realizing, okay, these same issues continue to crop up. Is this a problem with the coaching staff? But then they respond and they give you something that they haven't given you yet from a team perspective. And so now it's like, okay, this was a rocky one. You don't like to see this, but this actually, in some ways, I'm actually exiting this game more excited than if they would have come out and just beat the mess out of South Carolina. It would have showed a focused team. It would have showed that they're a really good football team, and everybody would have been talking. They should probably be ranked number 1. But the fact that they faced the kind of test they did today and they still figured out a way to win, that's a box that I think is like doubly checked.
Well, I think, Clint, that's a great point, because, what we saw this team, for basically 3.5 quarters, over 3.5 quarters, in a position to where you thought that the script of this game was going to go like we've seen in the past. And we haven't seen them be able to overcome old patterns, if you will. And so when we saw how this game was shaping up, it was one of those things where, and you just scroll through X guys and you look at, some live tweeting and things like that. People thought that this was falling back into the same habits. And why would you not think that, right? You have a sample size to indicate that that could have been what happened. But I think I agree with you on this. The resiliency from this team that we saw tonight is so, so impressive. And I think what sticks out to me the most is the composure and the focus and urgency the offense was able to have in those last couple minutes.
Yeah, and that was the difference. They flipped a switch when they needed to, a switch that they have not A, had, or B, shown. You can say, well, they flipped a switch in some of these other games that were tight and figured out a way to win. Yes, but this one was different because there was this added pressure.
Yep.
If this would have been the number 1 team in the country and you're in their house and you're playing like this, it's disappointing. People are still kind of probably overreacting some on Twitter, including me. But at the same time, it's more understandable.
Right.
The frustrating part for fans was like, this is a football team that they're 3-4 to 4.
Right.
really good football
Unranked
teams.
team on the road, mobile quarterback. It was everyone's worst nightmare. And then it started shaping up to be exactly what some could have expected to be with those scenarios. But we are sitting here on a winning post-game show, not a losing post-game show. Clint, I'm going to bump out for 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
Go for it. So we'll continue to get these super chats while she's gone. First of all, appreciate you, Logan. My boys at 34206. Appreciate you, brother. I don't know what that means, but maybe that's a shout out to. I mean, that's an inside thing, which is totally fine. We just appreciate the super chat and appreciate you being here. Mattress Matt, stop making excuses for Grubb's drop back, sit in the pocket, basic run up the middle offense. We got yards when we switched to play action misdirection. And here's the thing. This is what I'm going to be so curious to go back and watch, because it felt like, based off of what South Carolina does, Alabama almost played into it. That was the strange part. It's like I said, some of the vertical stuff, it's not as long developing as you think it is, as far as getting the football out of the quarterback's hands. Sometimes he comes out of play action and he's letting that thing rip. But there was also some long developing plays, whether it be some of those vertical shots or just what they were calling. And with the way that the offense was playing, or based off of, if you just look at the basic matchups, you say that's really not where you want to live. And I even said that multiple times as far as the pregame preview types of things. And yet that's what they were calling. Why is that? I don't know what they were seeing. I don't know if they thought they would catch South Carolina off guard and they wouldn't be expecting it and they could lean into it. And then I have no idea. But what I will say is you're 100% correct. On some of these drives, they started playing the style of football that we had seen them play all year, and they were more successful. And so and that was at the end of the first half, and it was at the end of the second half. Now, maybe that was just a sense of urgency. Maybe that created the difference. But from a play calling perspective, it also felt very foreign versus very familiar in those two different instances, as far as, to start the game and start the second half for a majority of the game. So I don't really understand. I don't understand that. That's strange to me. I agree with you, Matt. It is interesting. And I'll be curious to go back and watch and say, okay, what was the game plan here? What were they trying to do? And what was I'll try to figure out the logic behind it, but just some of it is from a play calling perspective, from Grubb's perspective, guys weren't executing what he was calling. So I don't care what you call. If guys aren't executing it, it's not going to work. So we can hold we need to hold the players, accountable to an extent as well, because a lot of what Grubb in a lot of these games has been dialing up, it's been working. So that's because the players are executing. So that is at least something to keep in mind, when we talk about some of these things. Iceman, appreciate you being here. Appreciate the $5 super chat. Hard fought win tonight. Clint, are you a little concerned about wide receiver depth like I am after tonight? Roll Tide. We'll go ahead and get EG back in here. Let's see. And we can answer this kind of together, because I want to know if you're concerned about it too.
Yeah.
But am I concerned about the wide receiver depth? I am, because I still think they got options. But, when you have a combination of guys getting banged up, you don't have Lottie available. Isaiah Horton kind of gets banged up. Derek Meadows, I think he was was he officially removed from the injury report? I think so. He wasn't listed on there, right, EG, that you know of?
This is my dog, by the way, making a little appearance in post-game.
Does your dog, whenever you're watching these games and your anxiety is going through the roof, they're always trying to figure out what's going on, and they're like I can sense whatever you're feeling, and you need to calm down, because that's I deal with it as well. It's never fun. But yeah, I mean, I'll say that the wide receiver depth, I love the options. I still think they have plenty, but when you combine the injuries and then the fact that God, it's just not certain guys' best day, yes, it's a long-winded way of saying, yes, I'm concerned. Are you concerned, EG?
I'm not as much, Clint. I'm going to be honest. I think that there's so much talent at that area that also, because of the bye week, that's why I'm not as concerned. You're going to get a lot of opportunities to rest up, let Jeff Allen and that training staff do their thing. But I do think in the last couple of weeks, we've seen, a few hits taken on these receiver core. But with that being said, I'm curious to see what it looks like in a couple of weeks. And I think we can revisit this conversation if we're still seeing some of this once we get to LSU.
Yeah, this was one of those things where kind of across the board, there were drops. So you can't put it on any one player. Jeremy had his first of the season. Rico had one. Ryan.
So
And this is
There you
the
go.
frustrating part. We talk about how we have talked about how like Ty is elevating the play of the wide receivers, and the wide receivers are elevating the play of Ty.
Exactly.
Tonight it was like the exact opposite, where it's like, I mean, Ty is off his game for a couple of understandable reasons, but the wide receivers weren't helping him out. They weren't making things. They weren't making when he would throw a catchable football, they wouldn't make the play.
Right.
When wide receivers say, "Hey, buddy, we're open," Ty couldn't put him on him like he needed to.
Right,
So it's like we've
oh.
now seen both sides of it, and that's where I think fans really get frustrated, because if it was one side of it where it's like, "Hey, Ty's out here balling out, and you guys can't bring it in," it's like, okay, you know, if you're watching just the receivers just dial it up and they're not dropping any passes, if you put it anywhere close to them, they're bringing it in, and you're like, Todd, just give your guys a chance more consistently. Like, but instead, it's both sides not really doing what they need to do to get the job done. That's where I start to have, you know, some questions.
Now, I do want to say this, Josh Cuevas. I mean, the consistency of Cuevas, we really need to talk about that. And I love how Ryan Grubb has utilized the tight ends in this offense. I think it's such an underrated element to this offense. The level of consistency that we're getting from them, specifically Josh Cuevas, cannot be overstated, in my opinion, especially with this game tonight.
Yeah, that is 100% accurate. He was reliable. And I mean, you know, Jeremy making plays, like he still kind of did his thing. Ryan still had, 7 catches for 72 yards. Like give him credit for that. But it's just, you know, one of those drops. It's those moments where you need it. And they were coming up short. The most concerning part to me is the fact that you had so many 3-and-outs when this offense just the entire season had avoided 3-and-outs.
Right.
You go from having what feels like, you know, a couple of all year where you're going 3 or 4 series in a row with nothing but 3-and-outs. That's where I say it was not the way that this team has won in any other game.
No.
And yet they figured out a way to win.
And so I'm looking back at my notes that I took, and I literally have third 3-and-out, 5 straight 3-and-outs. It's crazy. It was something that was very uncharacteristic, because we've seen how successful this team can be on third down. And that was actually something that was brought up in post-game after Tennessee, the success rate they're having there. And I think that's honestly a little bit remnant of some issues that we saw last season. Now, again, very different quarterbacks, very different strengths. But I do also want to mention, when it comes to the running backs, I know we've already touched on them. Daniel Hill has been super impressive. Their ability to catch out of the backfield, oh my goodness. And their ability with the pass blocking pass protection. I mean, it is, and blocking. I mean, it's really impressive to see how that is really a group that, and I was talking to Coach Gillespie about it this past week, whatever they are required to be for this team is what they step up to be. And I think that we're seeing that in multiple facets. And Daniel Hill is a guy that's really encouraging to see him continue to get touches and continue to capitalize when he does have the ball in his hands. Yeah,
well, I mean, in previous games, you had Jeremy Bernard leading the team in rushing yards.
Yeah.
And so Daniel Hill said, you know what, Jeremy, you know what, wide receiver room, I'll step up and I'll lead the team in receiving yards.
That's such a great point. I love that.
Yeah. And, so, and that was good to see, and give Daniel Hill a lot of credit, because like I said, when they needed some plays, especially in the first half down the stretch, he made them. So Superfly with the 499 super chat. Appreciate you, brother. This type of win is a championship caliber win, back against the wall, and you make it happen. Roll Tide. That is something that I don't want any of us, including myself, to forget, because that is absolutely correct. When you talk about things not going your way, not how you have won, and you go from controlling the game, controlling time of possession against pretty much everybody you play, or it's a pretty even split, to you are getting dominated for a majority of the game as far as the time of possession. That's out of your comfort zone. It's not what you're used to. So you've got to bow up and say, okay, we're not winning how we typically win. So we got to figure out a different way to win. And I will say, both sides of the football, when it mattered, I love that both got to chip in on the victory. The offense finally went down the field. They score. They get a 2-point conversion, which was Ryan Grubb chipping in as the play caller. Great play design, new play design. And he had that in the bag for a while. And that was specifically a 2-point play. And that was, you could tell that, I guarantee you's got a few more of those stashed away, but it came at a very critical moment. Then the defense goes out there, tie ball game now. So you got to keep South Carolina from driving. And then Deontay Lawson forces a fumble. Tim Keenan, another a defensive team leader, jumps on the recovery. Didn't even know he had jumped on the recovery, but gets the recovery, gives the offense the football back. And then some of your playmakers continue to do what they need to do to give you a lead, and not just a field goal lead. The comment Jesse Palmer was saying, oh, if Jeremy would have stepped out there, you could have ended the football game on a chip shot. And I'll guarantee you a bunch of Alabama fans were saying, brother, I would 10-1 rather him score that touchdown and say, let's trust the defense to go out there because they had been playing pretty good football when you gave them a little bit of a break on the sidelines compared to Connor Talty, who up to this point, and I don't want to pile on like, oh my God, but it's just, if you can avoid putting your kicker in very high pressure situations,
you're going to do that.
Especially when you're an Alabama fan who has seen this year after, there was a couple of several really good years there, but for the most part, field goal kicking has been a massive problem. You want to try to avoid that as much as possible. And Jeremy said, you know what, I'll go ahead and I'll put this on my back and give us a touchdown lead. And then let's defense get out there and go make it happen. And then pressure. And one of the other guys that I do want to talk about, we're going to continue to work through these super chats.
Yep.
But Jan Zapier, was he perfect? No, but he continues to make plays against the run. His growth as far as being a run defender, an edge setter, has been fantastic. He applied pressure on multiple occasions. I don't know what his final, let me look at what his final stats were. I got to expand this, but like,
we said that was someone that, keep your eye on for sure with what he was able to do. While you're talking on that, I do want to mention a few things from post game, because you mentioned, the resiliency, what allowed for this. And this is what Coach DeBoer said. He said, it's the investment of time we put into talking about the big plays and mindset to keep swinging. He has kept saying that phrase, keep swinging, and to forget about the last play. And I thought that they did a really good job of doing that, because they really did. South Carolina scored, right? And it was, the situation could not have been worse for Alabama, yet they responded. And that is exactly what you want to see, kind of going back to that championship caliber win.
The punt that hit Jalen Mbakwe, the way that was trending, that just felt like one of those, that was the dagger. Yep. That was the one where it's like you're holding on to a lead. They just take the lead. And then you essentially, you get a stop, you get a chance to get the football, you do that, and then they go down and they score a touchdown to go by 8. So now it's like, okay, not only does Alabama have to score a touchdown, but you've got to get the 2-point conversion.
Exactly.
And now yet they put it behind them and moved on to the next play, and that allowed them to fight their way back.
So when it came to that 2-point conversion discussion, Coach DeBoer said it was impressive, the coaching staff being patient and taking it one play at a time, knowing that when you have to get the 2-point conversion, but trusting that our guys will execute. And it goes back to the level of trust that we have seen from this staff and these players. And he was also asked about, these trick plays, like how many more is in the bag? Like what else are we going to see? And he said it keeps building, but I'm going back to what I told you guys when I first jumped on. He says, I like to see us work on plays. And a lot of times we do not see them called that week, but you bank reps and opportunities come up. And he loves how the guys are not flinching in those situations.
That is a championship caliber approach.
Yep.
Because I mean, a lot like the magic with Caden Proctor, that didn't come to a screeching halt. Like it wasn't like he fumbled and it was like a catastrophic play, but he got stonewalled, he got stopped. And so it's like, just a lot of what you have been doing that have been working, and everybody's, hyping Caden Proctor up. It's giving the team a lot of energy. It's like, okay, well that failed. Oh, okay. Well that failed too. Like it just seemed like nothing was working. And they kept hammering away at it. Kept swinging. That's exactly right. Give this team a lot of credit for that. Brandon, once again, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. He says, Clint, what are your thoughts on the deep ball? Ty seems to struggle beyond 20, but the arm is there. We'll need it. It has been a massive problem. And part of it there for a while, it felt like they weren't doing it tonight or today. They were 100%. They were trying. And I remember last year there was a game. I wish I remember who it was against, but it felt like that they got they were trying to get Jalen Milroe's arm deep ball back on track. And they were just force feeding these vertical shots. And just Jalen was off. He wasn't hitting them. It wasn't there.
Yeah.
They were,
I remember this.
And I mean, I do not remember what game that was. No, it wasn't Tennessee. But anyways, point being is that this felt like the same thing where it's like, okay, everybody is worried about Ty. He has not been hitting in the vertical ball. Let's get the vertical passing game on track. And some of that is what South Carolina is presenting. It's not like they're running split safety looks and Ty's like, you know what, I'm slinging that thing anyways. Like, we're just going to do it. Doesn't matter what, what it looks like. It wasn't sort of stubbornness. The looks were there. But as far as like, hey, if the look is there, we need to take it and we need to hit some of these. We really need to get this element going of our offense, because the thing is, the more you put this on tape, the more defenses see it and say, hey, they have no vertical passing game. Then they can say, okay, from pretty much 25 yards to the line of scrimmage, that's where we need to put our focus as far as stopping Alabama, because they can't take advantage of the timing's off or whatever. So I think that might be why Ryan Grubb was so committed to it. Like, we've got to get this going, or defenses are going to start playing us differently, because they respect the passing game, but they don't respect the vertical passing game. That is what is concerning to me, because you just put a bunch of stuff on tape where it's like, yeah, we don't have to respect this. I don't know what the problem is. The timing with the receivers seems off. There were opportunities that were there, and just for whatever reason, Ty can't seem to get it to them on those vertical balls. It doesn't make a lot of sense, given that Brandon's 100% correct. He's got the arm strength. It's not that he doesn't have, but some of the stuff, as mechanically sound as he is, maybe I need to really go and study this game and say, how did he look mechanically on those vertical shots? Maybe there's something that's off there. I also think that trying to force it while he is under duress and he's starting to see those ghosts that Brandon's talking about, that could have just been a bad combination. So these are why we go back and watch to try to evaluate and figure it out. I wish I could tell you more, Brandon. And maybe you could tell us more. I know you're a student of the game and you're great at this stuff too. If you do, I'd love to hear your opinion, and anybody else that's got an opinion. But it hadn't looked how it needed to look.
Well, that's what Clint is so good at. Excuse me, guys, is going back, watching the film, breaking it down, and giving you guys the best judgment calls. Because, as he mentioned, we're watching this pretty immediately, obviously following the game. So there's gonna be things that we're not privy to, things that we're missing. And I'm curious to see, what the adjustments are with Ty's game. If that's something that they've alluded to when it comes to, there's still so much more to Ty and his offensive output that he hasn't executed yet. And there's still so much he can improve on. And I would, think that is an area that they want to see him improve on for sure.
Yeah. And Jones, appreciate the 499 super chat. He says, James just isn't dynamic, Jam just isn't dynamic enough to make up for the offensive line deficiencies. He takes so long to gather himself before he gets north and south. Part of me, I want to agree there, and maybe I come away from this game later and say that I do. But for now, there were times where I think his patience pays off, and he lets things develop in front of him. He's not just a battering ram that's just hammering at something that's really not there. He's giving his offensive line a chance and saying, okay, where is the crease? And I think at moments he is seeing things extremely well. There's one run in particular that I just thought he's seeing the field so well here as far as knowing exactly, and he ended up turning it into a pretty decent gain. And I'll try to put that out on Twitter, exactly what I'm talking about later on. But I just think that a lot of the issues right now is the offensive line getting beat and not giving the running backs even a chance. And so like I said, when you've got Daniel Hill having a defender wrapping his legs by the time he's getting the handoff, just like, and you see that pretty often. I'm not saying it's all on the offensive line. I think the play calling in these certain instances could be a little bit better. I think Ty could be a little bit better. The offensive line could certainly be better. Running backs could be better. It's a collective effort. But they've got to start making improvement on that front, because it's becoming a problem, especially when you combine it with a lack of a vertical passing game, because that's one less box that the defense is really, not that they don't have to worry about, but that they are saying, okay, we're not threatened by this to the extent that we need, that you would want them to be.
Yeah.
Let's see. Kim, appreciate the 499 super chat. The game was ugly and I aged about 10 years, but they dig deep and find a way. Flowers to the whole team.
I agree.
Again, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say that, I don't think that we really can say enough the resiliency level of this team. It's a word that Coach DeBoer has continued to use when he describes multiple position groups, because this was shaping up to be more of the same, if you will. And it wasn't perfect. It wasn't pretty. We've talked about that. There are, points of critique that you can look at with every position group and say that if you did your job a little bit better in this situation, this outcome wouldn't have happened, et cetera. But I think that we saw such a resolve from, everyone on this team to respond in a way and leave with a win in a very hostile environment, another SEC win under your belt. Now you have a much needed bye before you take on LSU at home. And I think we could quite literally, Clint, we could go down, the roster and point out areas where, okay, hey, that guy should resolve, that guy showed resiliency, that guy, had a mess up here, but look what he did the very next play. And that's really all you can ask for. And as Coach DeBoer put it, they left it all out in the field. And that's what you want from your team in a situation like this.
Yeah, I mean, and look at guys like Jeremy. Jeremy has the drop. Jeremy goes out there and makes a play. Ryan has the drop. Ryan goes out there and makes some plays in some critical moments, some tough catches. And I will say that what this team is doing a really good job of is they are moving on to the next play.
Yes.
Like when they make a mistake, they say, hey, it's washed.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, that's good or bad. It's like, just let's win the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, you can lose a lot of them. And still, when it really starts to matter, you can get a victory because you're not letting the things that are going against you linger.
Right.
So, that's good timing. Michael Coleman, appreciate the $10 super chat. Everyone wants to call it my grandson, Ryan. Ryan had one drop pass tonight and played his ass off against Tennessee. It's a fair point. I mean, it is a very fair point. Now, granted, you have to acknowledge the drop. You can't just say it's all good, great, and wonderful. But Ryan, just like a lot of these guys, when they make a mistake, they figure out a way to try to make up for it.
Yeah.
And they don't let it linger, don't let it bother them. And I will say, once again, key difference, in my opinion, from last year's team to this year's team, and why I think this team this year is built more to win a championship than last year's team. I think that definitely matters.
Mm-hmm. And it's been cool to see too, like, when you look at postgame, the way that Ty is talking about his teammates, Ryan and, specifically, the support and trust, I keep falling back on that word, that this team has within each other to know that one side of the ball is going to be able to pick up the slack. And that goes back to what you're saying, Clint. That was not the reality last season. And I think that Ryan, we've seen him more than a few times, the ability to bounce back and make the play the next drive has been so consistent with him that can't be overstated.
Yeah, 100%. Cotton, appreciate the 1999 super chat. That is big for us. We appreciate all you guys who are sending the super chats. That keeps the lights on for us, allows us to keep the show free for you guys to be able to come and participate. So we appreciate you guys so much. That's awesome. Appreciate you, Cotton. And he said, after running a gauntlet, Bama needs this bye week and the rest.
Yep.
Those guys have been through the ringer, and that could be the reason for tonight's performance. I'm very proud of them and a great win. No rushing the field tonight. He hit on just about everything there. I love that entire comment because it's been a gauntlet, and that's what you wonder. You're watching this game and you say, okay, is this because they struggle against these types of teams and these types of environments or situations, or is the fact they're coming off of playing 4 straight top 20 opponents and they were battles?
Yeah.
That's what you don't know, but it's unfortunate because it's going to be perceived a certain way. Even someone like me, I like that he brought that up. In some ways, it's good that this game happened because it wasn't another Florida State loss. You had a lot of the ugliness and a lot of things that you can point to and say, guys, we didn't do what we needed to do here. We need to get refocused. Like we need to get things back on track, despite the fact that you just got your 7th consecutive victory. Like that's actually in some ways a good thing. And you get the bye week to self-scout, reevaluate everything that you're doing, your approaches, fine tune some things. If you need to make some changes, what do we see after the last bye week? They came out that very next game against Georgia, and here's Michael Carroll. Here's Will Sanders. Yep. We start seeing these guys have earned some opportunities. Keon Keeley's another guy that continues to do good things. Love that he finally got that sack tonight. He's been close on multiple occasions. That was great to see. Just talking about guys who have been, we could see a little bit more of following the bye week. Maybe Keon Keeley ends up being one of them. But he said what he said about no rushing the field tonight, the fact their fans were already starting to try to get down those, whatever you call them.
Can we talk about real quick? So I was obviously not at the game. I'm back home in Atlanta for the different background for you guys that might be wondering. The space behind the end zone is non-existent. And we saw
Good point.
Ryan. Oh my goodness. Thank goodness. No injuries there. I have never seen a stadium that has such little space. Because if you guys notice, there's no photogs or media that are in the end zone. I thought that was crazy. And all of those fans too, with that so few amount of space, it's kind of like Tiger Stadium in a sense, where the fans are right on you. And so all of those fans and students had come down to those holly bushes. And I don't know if you guys noticed that, but I just kept thinking, dang, there is no space behind that end zone at all. And it's a giant, wall with thorn bushes in front of it. It's terrible.
Yeah, that would with Ryan when he first got pushed into that. My first thought is there's no way that didn't hurt him. And when he came out fine, I mean, A, it shows his toughness, but B, it was just like it was one of those moments where, like, thank goodness, because that could have been so bad because he got shoved hard into it.
Yeah.
I mean, so and he went through. You're right. He went through bushes and everything else, and that's dangerous. I mean, that's not just dangerous for Alabama. That could be dangerous for South Carolina too.
Right.
Never want to see that. But Brandon, appreciate the $49.99 super chat. That is, you've already sent multiple. Can't tell you how much we appreciate you, brother. I was actually telling EG can back me up on this. I was telling the group we had these meetings, and I told him Brandon always brings it as far as the phone calls, and I would love to figure out a way to start getting you on here, and several other people as well. So many people do a great job as far as their comments and stuff, but you were certainly one of the ones that was brought up. But he says, this is for the haters coming at Clint for keeping it real and objective. He knows ball because he puts in the work. Ignore the hate. First of all, thank you so much. And here's the thing. There's two ways of looking at it. Sometimes you're overly positive and people are like, you need to hold the team accountable more. There are too many things that don't look good. And then there's a flip side of that where it's like, can we just celebrate the fact they're winning a lot of football games? They're figuring out a way to get it done. They just went 4 top 20 opponents and they had the perfect trap game that set up just like a trap game with the way it was playing out. And then they still figured out a way to get a win.
Yeah.
Can you just praise that? And it's like, I'm over here trying to juggle both because both are worthy of being addressed. And so that can be difficult. And sometimes there's people who's like, I just want to hop on a post-game show and just hear nothing but positivity because I'm just thrilled that they figured out a way. And then there's other people who's like, I am sick and what I'd say at the end of this week, I said, you know what? Maybe I should just start trusting this team that they're going to figure out a way to get it done. And I'm going to just ignore the fact that all those other games, they had. So I started to flip the script because everybody was criticizing me so much for being too negative. And then as I'm sitting there with my arms crossed watching, in the second half, I'm like, I knew I shouldn't have given in to nothing. I should have stayed the course. And then they figured out a way to get a win. It's like, okay, well, this is exactly what everybody was talking about. Why don't you just give them their credit? It's a tough needle to thread.
Yes,
sure.
It is. And I think that, here on Cover Crimson, we want to give you guys both. And I think that being objective is our number one goal, besides obviously serving you guys as the viewers. And we want to give you guys the best coverage possible. And I think that what Clint does, and I'll take it from here, Clint, giving you the flowers too, because the way that you approach this is a unique way. And, you are going to get some people that don't want to hear all of the good. They don't want to hear all of the bad. And so we try to find that balance every week. I think so far we've done a good job of that. But again, we want to, give you guys information too that makes you guys more informed at the end of the day as well.
And I'll say what, and I don't really admit this much because there's part of me, like, from a professionalism standpoint.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's pretty evident. I'm a fan. So and when I see things, like, I go out of my way, not out of my way, but it's because that's what I believed. I wasn't just blowing smoke, but all off season, I do what I did as far as, man, this looks great. And this looks great. And on paper, this is going to be amazing. And I hype them up as much as I did. And then they come out flat like they did against Florida State. I'd like him always one of those. I never like to just point fingers and blame others. I like to say, okay. And I know it's like, how much did I really play into that? But when we as the media are doing nothing but singing their praises and talking about how good, great, and wonderful they are, if they come out flat, you have to ask yourself, is it possible that they watched what I said and they thought, oh, we're really good. We don't have to work. It's like you ask yourself that. So in my mind, especially after the game last week, I'm like, 17 points is great, but I want to go ahead and start. If anybody's watching this that is part of the team, I want you to go ahead and stay focused because you got a big game coming up that's going to be a lot more difficult than some people are going to make it out to be. And I, as a fan, I want you to perform well. So I'm trying to figure out how I can, point out the things that are, hey, you still got work. I'm trying to go into coach mode, where it's like, hey, we don't need to bind to all the hype and stuff. We got things we need to work on. that's kind of where I'm coming from. But I also can understand where a lot of people might not like or agree with that. So, I'll go ahead and say this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We probably, I guess, need to start wrapping it up. I know there's Walt says we need a call line for sure. I'm telling you, that's way more difficult than I ever thought it was. And if anybody has they have done this and they know how to do it, they have a setup for us, DM me on Twitter at Clint R. Lamb. If you helped us out, you'll get the first phone call if you want it. If you know how to set this stuff, because I've been watching YouTube video. It's more difficult than I thought it was. So you're 100% right. We've been trying to figure it out. And we also want to do some other things too. I wouldn't mind if we had some trusted people that we could get on here that weren't going to say anything out of pocket that gets us, taken off of YouTube. It would be nice to have a couple of people that we could actually invite on, see your face, let you have a second after some of these games and stuff. And because we want you guys as involved as we can possibly get you, because this is y'all's channel. It's y'all's show. And we're just here trying to support you guys. So, we appreciate all you guys so much. EG, do you have anything else? Any final thoughts before we hop out of here?
Well, I've aged a lot, guys. This is a team that it's a bend don't break in a lot of ways, and we've been told that. The offense is a take what the defense gives you. We've been told that. And I'm really impressed with the resiliency of this team. I've said it and I'll say it again. I'm really impressed with that focus on the offense and the ability to execute, the play calling from Ryan Grubb. It all fit together on the back end of basically everything going wrong. And I also want to bring up Deontay Lawson and Tim Keenan and Justin Jefferson. And we talked about Justin Jefferson, I'm sure we have, but Justin Jefferson had himself a game. He seemed to be everywhere he needed to be. Deontay Lawson, ripping the ball from Lenora Stellars, Tim Keenan landing on it, not even realize that he was on it. Incredible. It's things like that I don't want to be overshadowed in a messy win like this, because the coaching staff continually says, do your job better. It comes down to individual guys doing their job just 1% better. And I think that we saw that in a lot of ways. And Clint has said it before that this is a win that it's a messy win. There's some benefit to it, but it's so impressive because all of the cards were stacked against Bama really the entire game. Nothing was going right. I mean, it was not pretty. They gutted it out and they were able to find that separation at the very end. And it just shows a different level to this team was reached. And it was not necessarily the way that a lot of people wanted it to happen. But like I said, we're sitting on a post-game show after a win and not a loss. So that has to count for something. And
regardless of how people, whether you're thrilled, whether you're upset on how it played out, the bottom line is every championship team, most championship teams, they face this type of test.
Yeah.
And they figure out a way to get it done. And so once again, I've already said this once, but for the people who are, didn't hear it, I'll say it again. In some ways, would you love for them to win 40-0? Absolutely.
Of course.
That's the ideal. But in some ways, I think that this showed more about this team being a championship caliber team than winning 40-0 would have.
Yeah.
So we'll see how they look after the bye week. Still a lot of work to do. LSU's a good football team. Obviously, still have Oklahoma. They're a good football team. Going to Jordan-Hare Stadium and playing Auburn, that's not going to be easy. I think everybody can agree with that, especially after seeing what took place today. But Alabama's figuring out ways to get wins. And so as long as they're doing that, they deserve praise. So appreciate everybody who has been here. This has been therapeutic for me as far as getting some, because even when I first hopped on, I was just like, I don't really know what to say. I'm still like, the brain fog is real. It's like, there's like all the adrenaline and stuff that have been building up. It's like, well, when you go live and you're having to talk about it, you need that stuff to ride, but like I'm crashing off of it. So it took a while to get things going. But we just appreciate everybody working through it with us.
We do. We have a lot of fun with this. We have a lot of fun with this.
We do. And just everybody's been fantastic through this whole transition with how we're doing things now and what we got coming. So definitely get on over to roback.com. Use the promo code Crimson20 to get 20% off your order. I have Roback sitting right in there. I've got
Roback on right now.
Oh, I'm glad one of us do, because I got some in there, but I was planning to get a shower. I've been at the beach today.
Oh,
And yeah, so I was planning, but then I couldn't get it all done before the game started. And once the game started, I was like, we're committed to this.
We're committed. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm about to go get a shower, and then we gonna go out and celebrate the win. And definitely gonna be throwing on some road back because it's getting a little cool out. So
it is getting a little cool out. We have a code for you guys, and it is Cover 20 or Crimson 20. Switch over to that Crimson 20. That's one that we prefer to use. But with that being said, we're gonna have a lot of content for you guys coming with the bye week. We're not going anywhere. Don't worry. Just because the team is not playing on Saturday does not mean that we're not gonna have a full breakdown of this game. We'll have additional content and all of that good stuff as well coming to you guys. So stay tuned for that. And also, in a little inside baseball here, I'm workshopping a guest for the bye week for EG and Friends. I put it out on Twitter, but let me know who you guys might want to see because I'm taking suggestions for this week. We have our LSU guests locked in, and a few of you might be able to guess who it is. But I've had a lot of fun with those. Alyssa Langs from yesterday or 2 days ago is still out. And it has been one of those things where, it's just super fun, and I'm excited to see where it takes us.
Yeah, we're going to be continuing with the mailbags. That's another thing. And also, because it's the bye week, I'm going to kind of take a step back. We're going to be recapping the game with Jimmy and everything. But as far as previewing, instead, we're going to be looking at, okay, where are certain players trending, right? I mean, okay, we're going to be looking at Michael Carroll, the snap counts. We're going to be evaluating the tape. Hey, how is he trending in one direction? It might be trending a little bit back in the other direction, and what fans can expect as far as that's concerned. Other players, trends that we're noticing. I've already been taking a bunch of notes and trying to gather some of that. I'll have to take the South Carolina data and put that in there.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to be a really valuable resource for fans to just get an idea of where this team stands, where certain guys are trending. Sometimes you don't realize, oh man, this guy's quietly playing, 18 snaps a game over the last 3 games. Like that's important information to know. And situationally, like Keon Keeley, I'm going to be doing it with him. What types of situations has he been in on? What's his win rate? All this stuff is going to be super valuable for you guys. So appreciate everybody who has been here. Appreciate you, EG. And we will definitely talk to you guys soon.